wrong for sending my boyfriend a photo of me at the hospital? I, 20 female, was recently admitted into a hospital for a night due to a serious but no life-threatening illness. I was completely out of it for several days with horrible pain before my roommate convinced me to get medical help. She took off work to stay with me in the hospital, and I cannot express how much her support has helped as my own family lives too far away. Now, I've been dating Sam, 19 male, for about 9 months. He knew I was sick, and so I texted him when I was first going into the hospital to update him. Since he was working, he didn't read the messages until much later. I sent him around 6 texts updating him with what the nurses were saying and including a photo of me on IV giving a thumbs up. It was my first time ever in the hospital, and I just wanted to keep this shitty situation as lighthearted as possible. He responded a few hours later with a thumbs up, and that was all. I asked if everything was alright, and he said, "Yeah, just you being in the hospital is giving me a lot of anxiety. I'd rather not see you looking like that." I told him that was okay and didn't message him for the rest of the night, not thinking much of it. The next afternoon, his mom called me asking if I was okay. She had the impression that I sent him the hospital photo after he told me not to share any information and was disrespecting his request. She reminded me that his grandfather only died a year earlier, where Sam had to spend a lot of time in and out of the hospital, so the updates were making him grieve all over again. I apologized to her and sent him a text saying I didn't mean to hurt his feelings, and he left me on read. Oh hell. Oh my god. My roommate thinks I didn't do anything wrong at all, and he's being too sensitive / immature for involving his mom. I agree. Personally, I think this is a bit unfair as he was really close with his grandfather and struggles with anxiety. I feel really guilty as I know how mental health can be and never want him to suffer. So, am I the asshole? Look how he made you feel guilty about being in the hospital while he just left you on read. Think about that. He made you feel guilty for being in the hospital and he left you on read. Walk away.
Storytime about how I almost got kidnapped at a grocery store. So a little background information, I was 16 and it was during the summertime, and I was super excited because I had just got my license, but my parents had this idea that if they made me drive around and do all their errands, that I would be a better driver. So I was pretty much like their bitch. Anyway, so the one night my mom wanted to make this recipe that she saw on TikTok, and she didn't have the right seasonings for it, so who did she tell to go to the store? Yours truly, me. And on Sundays, the mini market that was in our town would close at 4 o'clock. So I had to drive like 30 minutes away to the nearest Target. And when I got there, I had to park in the back because they had like 10 handicap spaces up front, another 10 for when you sit there and they bring your shit out to you, and another 5 whenever you're picking something up that you already ordered. But in all honesty, that didn't bother me because I had never heard about any girls getting trafficked at a grocery store. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I almost got kidnapped at a grocery store. So like I said, I parked all the way in the back of the parking lot. I mean, okay, not all the way in the back, but I was damn near close. So I go in, and I'm not too familiar with this Target. I've only been here a few times because the mini market in my hometown is usually the one that I go to. So I'm looking around, and I realize that there's this little girl following me. But it seemed like she was more like keeping an eye on me. Like she would stand like 20 feet behind me, but just like stare at me, peek through the aisles. And she did that for like 10 minutes. But whenever I finally went up to the checkout, she was gone. And this woman came up to me. She was like, "Oh my gosh, have you seen my daughter? She was running around the store. I don't know where she is." So I described the little girl to her that I saw. And she was like, "Yeah, that's her. I can't find her. Will you please help me look for her?" And I didn't have the time for this because my parents were going to wring my neck. But I said, okay. Part 3 about how I was almost kidnapped at a grocery store. So like I said, she asked me to help look for her daughter, and I was like, I'm gonna go tell a Target employee, and she was like, "No, don't worry, they're all already looking, they have security all over the place." And she was like, "Will you help me check the parking lot because I don't know if she left." She was like, "I've been having them look for the past 10 minutes. So I didn't think anything of this because I didn't think that some lady would try to kidnap me. So I went into the parking lot with her and I'm like, "Okay, where do you think she would have went? Like, did you drive here? Did she maybe go to the car?" And she was like, "No, we live like 5 minutes down the road. Do you think that we could get in your car and drive around?" And I said, "Yeah," because I thought that it would speed up the process. And my dad's truck was really high off the ground. So while we're walking, I'm like, "I think someone's under my car." And she was like, "What? No, it's probably just the shadow." And I'm like, "No, there's someone under my car." So I turn around to walk back into the store and she starts like pulling my arm towards my car. So an employee called the police whenever I went in there, and long story short, they were trying to kidnap me.
Am I the asshole for what I did when my friend's husband wanted us to have dinner alone together? Disclaimer, this is not my story. I, female 31, was living in another country for 3 years. I kept in contact with a few friends from college, including Camila, female 29. Camila met and got married to her husband Joe, male 35, while I was away. I came home about a month ago and started hanging out with Camila more than the other friends since we're close. However, I noticed Joe behaving strangely around me. He constantly compliments my looks or outfits and recently has been trying to get us to have alone time together. This gave me weird vibes, but I didn't tell Camila since they're newlyweds. They've only been married for 2 months. So what I did instead was whenever he runs into me at the mall or the coffee shop, I would instantly call Camila and give her my location so she could come. He ran into me at a restaurant last night and sat at my table without even asking if it was okay. I let it slide in the moment, but he started complimenting my outfit and my nails. Am I the asshole for what I did when my friend's husband wanted us to have dinner alone together? Disclaimer, this is not my story. He started complimenting my outfit and nails, then went on about how he's always wanted to have alone time together so we could get to know each other well. I smiled and immediately texted Camila telling her husband was with me and asked her to join us for dinner. Joe kept asking me questions and smiling at me every 3 to 5 seconds until Camila showed up. I saw her waved and said, "Oh, what a coincidence, Camila's here." His smile faded and his face turned red. She said hi, then sat next to him and he didn't say anything but stared at me angrily the whole time. They went home after dinner. I stayed longer. Once I got into my car, Joe called me and was annoyed, saying I shouldn't have called Camila when he already stated that he wanted us to have dinner alone. He said that I was being paranoid for no reason because he just wanted to get to know me better as Camila's friend, but to be completely honest, I didn't buy this excuse. He said he didn't appreciate how sneaky and dismissive I was towards his wishes and that I hurt his feelings because of what I did. Am I the asshole for causing a scene at my mother-in-law's wedding after I found out that my husband was there against my wishes? Disclaimer, this is not my story. My husband's mom and I, female 26, don't get along at all. It was fine at first until our disagreements started to get bigger. Our last disagreement was because of her wanting to sell the family house and give her older son more money than my husband. My mother-in-law told me to stay out of it and my husband said he was fine with it. She ended up putting some distance between us and stopped inviting me to events. Which was fine, but I told my husband I expected him to stay home with me when I'm not invited. She got married a few days ago. It goes without saying that I wasn't invited. I asked my husband to promise to stay home with me and not go. He got defensive and said that this was his mom's wedding and there was no reason for him to not attend. I refused to speak to him after a big argument about it. He eventually said that he'd stay home with me. However, on the day of the wedding, he said he was going to hang out with some friends. I was skeptical, so I called his friends and they said they didn't see him. Am I the asshole for causing a scene at my mother-in-law's wedding after I found out that my husband was there against my wishes? Disclaimer, this is not my story. I was skeptical, so I called his friends and they said they didn't see him. I knew he was at the wedding. I felt betrayed and I wanted to catch him red-handed, so I got dressed and went to his mom's wedding. He was actually there. I was so mad when I saw him. He saw me and started following me as I was making my way out. I yelled at him, calling him a liar and manipulator. He tried to get me to quiet down since people were staring, but I lost it on him and said that he betrayed the promise he made to me and that his word meant shit to me. He got defensive and said that he really wanted to be there for his mom, but at the same time couldn't handle me being upset with him and giving him silence, so he hid it from me. I told him to get out of my face and went home. He came back home saying I made a scene at his mom's wedding and humiliated him when I started yelling at him. I refused to argue, but his family came at me calling me horrible and controlling, saying that my husband is a saint for still enduring the shitty behavior of mine. I blocked his sister who was constantly arguing. Me and my husband haven't talked since.
I'm an asshole for contributing to my stepdaughter's wedding instead of giving more money to my daughter to pay off her student loans. I'm 51 and I have 2 kids, 25 and 19, with my ex, and 2 stepkids, 23 and 21, from my current marriage. My 25-year-old started college a few years ago, and I had a college fund. She got into an Ivy League school and received a small amount of financial aid, and she's now completing her master's in the same school, and is doing a paid internship with a big organization. My 25-year-old still has some student loans left. My 23-year-old is getting married next year, and I'm contributing a decent amount to the wedding. I have a good income and a decent amount of savings. Bottom line is my 25-year-old found out, and she's pretty upset about it, saying that I could use some of the money to help her out. I asked if she's struggling with managing everything, and she said no, that I'm spending so much money on my 23-year-old's wedding. I've said I already contributed to her college before, and that my other kids have gotten a full ride. She got kind of angry with me, and I know that she's also had a bit of an argument with my 23-year-old about it. Even my 19-year-old got involved, saying I should be throwing all my money into this wedding. And without